we've got girls, lots of girls that are just before college age and just graduating college. And my biggest frustration, and I tell them all the time, your generation doesn't know how to date anymore. There's no such thing as courting. There's no such thing as intimacy. It's these apps. They feel to me like they've ruined everything.
Well, there's a certain part of the population. I have a product called Finding Mr. Right for that age, and showing them that there's boys and men and there's men of God. Okay. And the questions to ask to find out what you're looking at, because male does not equal man.
No.
Right. And so there are really good men who aren't doing pornography at 20 years old. Okay. There are good men. Okay. But you're right. The apps have made it for the lazy people, gets them into expedited trouble, which they can become addicted to, because why not have a different flavor every week? Right?
Well, now girls are beginning to think that that's the expectation. They have every right to behave that way and is expected of them. And so they don't feel good about themselves, but I've noticed that they're doing this.
And that's been going on since the 60s. So
it's terrible.
But you're right. It's exponentially worse. And so we get into sexual addiction because like the one type of sex addict is biological, neurological, right? So when you have a sexual release, you get the highest level of endogenous opiates, hits the prefrontal cortex of the brain, and boom, you attach to whatever you're looking at. And I mean, whatever you're looking at. It can be a person of a different race. It could be same gender. It could be an animal. It could be an object. You glue and attach.
Or a child.
And I can tell you funny stories.
This
about all
is
that.
the arousal template.
The arousal template, yeah. We have a video on sexual templates, because you create a sexual template. And here's the thing is these kids don't know that. And so they're interjecting the sexual template training, but they don't know who they're going to marry.
So wherever you were, whatever you were doing, whatever you were looking at, when you were first aroused, begins to set up neural pathways.
Absolutely.
That you want to go back. So it could be even at somebody's shoes.
All
of a sudden you get attached
I have one
to
guy,
shoes.
so I don't know how graphic, I won't be graphic, but this is a true story early in my career. And he's been free for over decades. Okay. But when he was a kid, he lived on a farm. And so when he was being with himself, the noise in the house would go bang, 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 way. So they'd make fun of him the next day, laugh at him. Smart kid, figured out, can't do that. So I go out. So he went outside past the barn. What was he wearing? His boots. And you either look up or look down. So he was looking down, and he neurologically got attached to his boots. When I met him, he had a boot collection, like from here to that wall over there.
Is that what's going on with your shoes?
Another topic. Okay. But he literally had that, and he would never be sexual with a woman unless he was wearing boots.
Oh, that's so
because
interesting.
he attached to the object relation. This is how we get into cross-dressing. This is how we get into fetishes. Because of what we do is we hijack the sexual template and say, no, not a person, this. And
I have a book I wrote called The Brain in Love. And there's a chapter in it called Weird Sex Fiends and Fetishes. And a patient actually shared with Mark that was addicted to cows.
Oh,
and
no.
the section was, can you say moo?
Well, this guy actually thought cows were enjoying it. So yeah.
Oh boy.
So when you work in sexual addiction, you hear all kinds of stories. I've been doing it for 40 years. But you can attach to whatever you want. Now here's the beauty thing though. You can also, because you are neuroplastic, you can train yourself to attach to a person, even if you spent decades in sexual addiction. I've taught many couples how to have incredible sexual relationship, eyes open, lights on, nurturing conversation, and attached to the soul and the being of the other person. So because we're so wonderfully made, no matter what you've done, you can heal.
That's amazing.
Now it takes a process. It'll take accountability. It'll take more work than, you could think right up front, but the back end is beautiful.
That's amazing. We're opening so many doors now, but that just really got me thinking about where this is really an awful topic and I hate it, but how molestation starts, how it's continued on, why people molest children and how that cycle continues.
And then exploitation.
And
absolutely.
I'm assuming it has something to do with this, obviously.
Project of how to restore
these girls
and boys who've been sexually abused, but then exploited. Having their fathers put their abuse, they videotaped on the internet.
Oh, wow.
And Pornhub actually started a whole subsection of their platform so you can upload home videos during the COVID period. So
we're definitely in a battle for sexuality. It started around the 60s and we lost. Okay, so we're trying to catch back up. But there's a lot of casualties, and we didn't even mention the wives of these men or the husbands of these wives who really love and care for them, yet they're not enough, either because of the pornography or they're having relationships with other people. And the tragedy is a lot of time with sexual addiction, it's the external environment that has to tell you that you're not okay. It's the job loss. It's the getting caught. It's the police officer catching you. It's the wife who's caught you with an email or a cell phone or a text, and your world comes together. You have to choose which world you're going to live in. And the beauty of that is they can still heal and get better if they get into some accountability groups, work the steps, do the program. We do 5-day intensives at Heart to Heart Counseling Center. Our success rate's in the 90th percentile with sexual addiction. Okay, so people can get
amazing.
better. Oh, we've been doing it for decades, so we're not practicing at this point, right? There's he's not practicing anymore. He knows what he's doing with stuff, right? And so there's freedom, and there's also hope for the ladies, because for so long, they were called the wrong thing. They were called codependents. They were called co-addicts and all that stuff that was wrong. They are actually partner betrayal trauma survivors. And the trauma of being neglected, we didn't talk about intimacy and anorexia yet, but the trauma of being with someone who wants to be with something or someone else on a regular basis is traumatic.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It has real PTSD. We have a book on that.
So there's so much to talk about. Let me organize us. You talked about it's a loss of control. You have a problem.
Absolutely.
And there's 6 different types. And I like that so much. I actually wrote a book on addiction called Unchain Your Brain, Breaking the Addictions That Steal Your Life. And to put everybody in the same program, sort of silly, because there are different types of addicts. There are impulsive addicts, or compulsive addicts, or sad addicts, or anxious addicts, or addicts who've had a head injury and they can't control their behavior. So talk to us about the 6 types.
Sure. The way that we've paradigmed that, and we were the first one to kind of categorize sex addicts in different categories. The first is the biological. That's what we talked about, creating the sexual template, ring the bell, feed the dog, ring the bell, feed the dog. Right?
They're conditioned.
Okay. The second is psychological. There's neglect in the family. There's pain in the soul. And as a 12, 13, 14-year-old, you can't go to the bar and tie one on. So you find yourself and you begin to use fantasy to compensate for what you're needing in your life. But that neurological response from the orgasmic response, you attach to that. And you become addicted in that process, psychologically dependent. Okay. There is the sexual abuse person. And then with this situation, they actually duplicate either as perpetrator or as victim the behavior. Okay. And so I had a young guy who would go and have encounters with much older, heavyweight males. Well, that was the person who abused him. And he kept perpetrating the same thing.
As the victim.
As the victim. And some people play the other role. They switch to the perpetrator, right? Then there's the spiritual person. I've only met a handful of these. They're looking for God in all the wrong places. And as soon as they have a spiritual encounter, they're done with it. Okay? So they don't usually show up in my office. And then there is the intimacy anorexic sex addict. Now, this person's unique. So intimacy anorexia is the active withholding of spiritual, emotional, and sexual intimacy from your spouse. They're too busy for you. They blame you for the problems. They withhold love, withhold praise, withhold sex. They are aren't able to talk about their feelings, use anger and silence as a way to control. They have criticism of you, that kind of stuff. And you feel married and alone, but they're still having fun with themselves or others. Okay. And then the last one is more on your camp, where there is a chemical imbalance, the mood disorder / sex addict. They're treating their bipolar. They're treating their manic depression. They're treating depression. They're treating head injuries, another thing. But they're using the neurological balancing that the ejaculation response gives or the orgasm response gives to help them modulate their brain, to put themselves to sleep or to just get through the day sometimes. And so there's different paths that people get there.